What is up? Welcome to the NBA Rundown, brought to you courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. I'm your host, Astaire. Usually I'm just with Tyler, but we have a full house today as Steve, Boynton, and the mysterious Gavin have joined us. Steve, thank you for joining us here. I know that you crushed college DFS this season, so you're quite familiar with all these players, and Gavin did really well wagering on college basketball as well. So we're here to kind of heed your guidance and work our way around, right? I didn't get to watch a lot of college this year, so I'm excited to hear what you expect of this draft. Now, in my mind, last year's draft was fantastic. I'm not sure if it can be as good as last year's draft, but I think there's a bunch of quality players that are going to make an impact in the NBA. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very top-heavy draft. I think last year, like we talked about on the show, it was just really deep, and we kind of saw that come to fruition this season. I like doing the show every year. We're kind of passing our guys along to you. So, Gavin and I have opinions on almost all of these guys. There are guys that we like more than others, and we'll get into it. I'm pumped.
All right, Gavin, how do you rate this draft compared to last year's draft, and what do you expect from this class overall?
It's interesting because, and look, I don't watch a ton or really much of NBA at all, but, I think we got a good look at kind of the positionless wing really coming to light. The guy that you can slot in there, play, 2 through potentially even 5, kind of depending on height, even with some ball handling capability. And there's a dearth of these kind of similar profile wings in this draft. And so I think you're going to see a lot of guys who are going to, at worst, hang around the NBA for a long time. But I think you're going to see plenty of impact guys towards the top.
All right. And speaking of the NBA, I'd be remiss if we didn't do a quick recap, Tyler. Once again, I got the NBA finals correct. Let's see. You were against me. Mangone was against me. Big T was against me. JSU was against me. But the Golden State Warriors come through. Any thoughts on the Warriors being able to pull this off, Tyler? Were you surprised? I'll tell you what, it was a relief for me just because I don't like going against you guys, and it felt good to finally get one right.
Yeah, I mean, Boston's young. They turned over the ball a ton. I mean, Golden State, they won. Congrats to Steph and Wiggins. I can care less for everybody else on that team.
All right, so Tyler did not listen to the Draymond Green podcast, but that's enough. Quick victory lap today. I just did a 100-meter dash there, not the full mile on the victory lap. Let's jump right into the draft. I'm just going to jump into the mock draft. And Steve, most mock drafts have Jabari Smith out of Auburn going number 1. So for my quick little preview, what I learned about him is he's an excellent shot maker, probably has the best shot in the draft. Some concerns about him were that he did shoot over his competition a lot of contested twos. Don't know if he'll get those same open looks in the NBA. What are your thoughts on Jabari Smith? Do you think that he goes number 1? And if so, do you think the Magic are making the correct selection?
I do not think he should go 1, but big fan of Jabari Smith. As Gavin will say too, we were on him really early. This is a guy who coming into the season was not really looked at as a guy who was going to be number 1 or even like top 5, but he's kind of played himself into this spot. 6'10", super, super smooth jump shot 42% from 3 as a freshman. Just an incredible shooter, lethal in transition, as like a trail guy. He's a pretty good defender, not like elite level like there are a lot of in this draft, actually. My concerns with taking him 1 is he didn't do much of creating on his own, right? He needs guys around him to facilitate, or at least he has up until this point. So, my concern is, will he develop to the point where he can create his own shot? And then Gavin can talk about it more. It just kind of felt like sometimes he should have been around the basket more. He tends to float sometimes and only look for that 3 instead of using his size more.
Gavin, what are your thoughts there on Jabari Smith?
Yeah, going back to, whether he should be the first pick, I'm not really going to get on the Magic for doing so. Jabari Smith, you're definitely not going to lose your GM spot and have your front office cleaned out because you drafted this guy, I think he's probably the safest, highest floor of the three. And, kind of going to what Steve said about the shot creation, if he does develop some shot creation, I mean, he could be an extremely unique and special player. He's invested on the defensive end as well, moves his feet in space. He's highly switchable, probably not, onto point guards in the draft. He's probably more of a 2 through 5 switch. But that being said, he's going to have to put on some weight. Super interesting prospect. And yeah, as kind of blue chip as it gets.
All right. Who do you think should be the number one pick, Gavin? If you were the Magic, who would you take?
Chet Holmgren is just, and look, you could lose your GM spot if this guy gets hurt and, doesn't quite figure it out. Yeah, they might be firing your ass over this, but we also might be talking about what are the most unique basketball players, ever to lace them up. I mean, you're looking at potentially taller Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns offense with Rudy Gobert defense. It's pretty incredible. And he's a really hardworking kid. All the intangibles and kind of work ethic checks out, and, shot 39% as a freshman already. So you feel pretty good about, where he stands from an offensive perspective and developing. And then he has, definitely the best defensive instincts for anybody coming out of the draft since Anthony Davis, not even really question.
Yeah, Chet's my favorite player too. Tyler, I know you have some hot takes here. What would you do if you're number one? What are your thoughts on Jabari Smith?
If I was number one, I'm not taking either of the guys we talked about. I'm taking the big man out of Duke, Paolo. But with the way this is set up, everything points to Jabari Smith going one. And just like they both just broke down, he doesn't really create his own shot that well. He needs set up. And Chet has a connection in Orlando with Jalen Suggs, who he played high school ball with. They both went to Gonzaga. We know Chet's holding out all his medical stuff from certain teams. He only has one workout listed. It's with the Magic. Never worked out for the Thunder. I think he ends up going first. He's plus 160 to go first. And what better place for Jabari Smith to fall into with not having to create his own shot as well, with SGA and Giddey on his team if he falls to OKC. He could just sit in the corners, make threes, and then play great defense on the other end. So I think it's going to flip-flop from the way these odds show. I think it's going to go Chet and then Jabari.
All right. Steve, who would be your number one pick?
Chet. Gavin and I have been talking about this for a while. We got on Chet when he was like plus 190. I think Tyler just said he's plus 160 now. I think that he has the highest upside of the three. I think Paolo is the best player right now. Jabari is the best shooter. I think Chet has the highest, game-changing impact possibility on both ends of the floor, where it's like, this is the only dude that can do all of these things, right? The weight is a concern. I mean, it's a legit concern. He is super, super skinny, and I don't know how much weight he's going to put on. But like Gavin said, just like the defensive instincts are out of this world. Had a 13% block percentage. Didn't play a ton of minutes, right? Like they blow a lot of teams out. So like his counting stats aren't absurd, but his per 40-minute stats are really, really good. Average over 5 blocks per 40, 21 points, 15 rebounds per 40 minutes. My concern with him, besides the weight, that's an easy thing to kind of cherry pick. Against tier A teams on KenPom, so elite competition, his offensive rating went way down. So it was 124 on the season against tier A teams, 107. He shot 39% from three on the year, but 25% against tier A teams. So if you had to pick something for him, I think that it's he didn't play his best against the top competition.
I'll tell you what, I'm not as concerned with the weight as everybody else. First of all, who actually plays in the low post in today's NBA? So there's two teams I got to worry about. Oh no, Jokic and Embiid are going to eat them up in the post. Not a lot of other guys are running through the post anymore, right? And also, these fives are rare, unless it's a Jokic or an Embiid. They're rarely on the floor even to close the game. A lot of these guys are closing with their power forward at center. I'm not as worried about the weight. If I were to worry about anything physical, I would just say it's going to be hard for him to put on weight because he's thin in his shoulders and he's thin in his hips, right? So it's not like a guy that you could really see filling into his frame as well. On the plus side there, less chance for ankle and knee injuries, right? What do we have a problem with a lot of these big guys, right? They can't stay healthy because, they're 7'2", even Embiid, right? Rarely healthy by the time the end of the 82 game season comes, right? Because he's such a big guy. Gavin, what are your concerns with Chet Holmgren's weight, and how do you view this? I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. Am I missing something?
I don't really make that big of a stink of it either. Everybody had the same concerns with Kevin Durant coming out of college,
Right.
So yeah, I kind of lean towards the side of it's, less wear and tear on, like you said, the ankles, knees, the feet, the things that, can hamper some of these big men for years on end. So I'm not really making a big deal about it, frankly, because the skill set just plays so above, kind of what else is out there in the draft.
All right. So yeah, that's 1 and 2. I'm just going off the mock drafts. Tyler thinks, and you guys think there's a chance that Chet goes to number 1. And Tyler, you mentioned they played high school together. I mean, they go back to playing at 8 years old. Jalen's father worked.
Oh, I didn't know it went that far back.
Yeah, he worked with them like as a little kid. I read a nice ESPN article about him today. I guess they were just running circles around him when he got there, but he's a real hardworking kid. And so there we are with the top 2 picks. Let's go to Paolo, who right now is slated to go to number 3. Of course, we've seen the pictures circulating about the time that Paolo spent in Houston, and we think that Raphael Stone, the general manager of the Rockets, really likes his skill set. One thing to be said for him from reading the previews, and like I said, I'm really just aggregating a bunch of knowledge that I read. These aren't my I didn't watch the tape and find this, but a lot of people think that he has the best feel for the game, that Paolo is the best passer of the top 3, and just as the natural basketball player, even if he doesn't have the athletic ability or the beautiful shooting stats that say Jabari Smith had. Steve, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Paolo Banchero, who I think is going to the Rockets? Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he's pretty clearly third for me. Point forward, shot creator. He is huge. He's 6'10", 250. So like just a big guy. He's too big for wings to guard, and he's too quick for centers. So, just a matchup nightmare. Definitely the worst shooter of the top 3, shot 33%. And you can tell that, he doesn't want to take threes, but he's really good at driving the basketball, scoring in the mid-range, more of like a volume scorer than a super efficient type of guy. And I don't think that that's going to change. But yeah, I mean, matchup nightmare, like superstar team carrying type of upside, especially if he ever decides that he wants to play any defense. I mean, that's his biggest concern. It was his concern the entire season. It's what lost Duke a bunch of games. The effort and the defensive instincts are definitely much worse than the other 2. So, I mean, you guys know the NBA more than me. Top 3 pick. Do you use it on a guy who's only there on one half of the floor, even if he is dynamic there?
I gotta jump in right here because I'm gonna catch heat for this, but legit, he just broke him down. Who did he just describe, Spread? To a T, who's the opposite version of Paolo. He's in the NBA, and we gave him shit all year.
I'm not sure. Who are you talking
about? Ben
about?
Simmons.
Oh, okay.
Because just like he said, he's great on one end of the floor. He doesn't show up on the other end. Ben Simmons is just the opposite. He shows up on the defensive end. He has no offensive game. Paolo's just a complete flip of that. So, yeah, I think you do use the top 3 pick on that because we've seen a guy like that go first.
Gav, what are your thoughts here on Paolo Banchero?
Yeah, what Paolo has over kind of the other, 2 guys who are projected to go ahead of him is this is the dude that you're going to give the ball to late in a game to go get you a bucket and go win a ball game. He can get it done at all 3 levels. He can handle in the pick and roll game, which could, like Steve said, make him an absolute matchup nightmare if he's dragging out 4s and 5s to play in space in the pick and roll. The question with him, I think, really comes down to how much better does he get? He could be the closest. I think he's definitely the closest to his ceiling of the 3 guys at the top. That being said, if he does continue to improve year in and year out, I mean, you're talking about a like Carmelo Anthony type scorer in Karl Malone's body. It's kind of he's a big dude who could just kind of bully his way around some of the smaller guys. So he can get it done any which way he pleases. Pretty interesting prospect.
I seen one comp to him that had him as like a Carlos Boozer with a mix of Blake Griffin with a little less athleticism.
No way. He can handle.
He is
the ball,
huge,
dude. And he's such an underrated passer. Now, part of I think the defensive effort came down to when you have Wendell Moore, when you have Mark Williams behind you, it's a lot easier to and you are the dude carrying the offense. Chet didn't carry the offense. Jabari didn't carry his offense. Paolo was the dude in the offense the entire year, dealing with all the pressure of the Coach K victory lap nonsense. He took it in stride and he played extremely well in some tight spots. So yeah, I mean, I love the guy. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind him like as the number one pick. It's all kind of dependent on need and what you're looking for.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. See, this is interesting. So I think that these top three guys are all going to be high level contributors in the NBA. Steve, what do you think the chances are that all three end up being all-stars at one point in their career?
I think it's pretty high. I think like Chet, like we said, has the highest upside, but I think he also has the like the best chance to just not get there. Mm-hmm. I have no doubt that Paolo is going to be a really good player. I just don't know if he's going to be a superstar. He's always going to score it. Like we said, he's just way too big and too quick to not be a really solid player. But like Gavin said, I think if Jabari figures out more, like he can be a superstar. I think Paolo is, like Gavin said, closer to his ceiling than the other two, which makes him safer. But I mean, I really like all three guys. I'm happy to see that Jabari Smith is, up there in the top three because he was the guy that, we kind of were banging the drum for the entire season. So really happy to see him, I guess be viewed in everyone else's eyes as well as Gavin and I thought he played.
Gavin, what do you think the chances are all three end up with an all-star appearance?
I think there's minimal to no doubt that Paolo doesn't get there because I just see him as a guy who's going to be a 20-point scorer, in his prime for multiple years. So you're basically weighing Chet's likelihood of injury to if Jabari can Jabari really become an all-star if he's kind of more of a spot-up shooter and, pretty usable defender? It's tougher to debate, especially when I feel like a lot of the all-star game is, predicated more on who can put the damn ball in the bucket and, with the fan voting and all that shit. So yeah, I don't know. I could see Jabari not getting there, but it's still, certainly better than 50% likely. It's probably, 60 to 70-ish.
Yeah, that makes me excited for this draft. Tyler, what do you think? Chances of all three? You got the hot takes today.
I mean, if chance of all three, I'm going to say low just because I think Paulo's for sure going to get one. I lean towards Chet being more of a bust. I'm just worried about the size and the weight a little bit more than you guys. And just like Gavin said, can Jabari really get there if he's just like a spot-up shooter and a defender? Like, even if he has his best season, is he still getting an all-star spot? Like, I don't think so. So I think Paolo's going to be the only one that gets one.
All right. So Tyler's a little bit more down on this draft class. Now, here's this time, that I've been waiting for.
Yeah. And spread.
Go ahead.
One whale play for this draft. If I had to bet my life on it and Paolo's on the board at 3, Houston's taking him because
I think for sure.
Yeah. The moment he worked out for them the other day, immediately following that workout, they traded Christian Wood, who plays the same position. So they were like, yep, you're out of here.
And isn't there a Seattle connection there as well?
Yeah, and he's good. He's played with Jalen Green and went to high school with Porter Jr., played with him, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Paolo to the 3 is one of the safest bets. Any chance that he gets taken before then?
I mean, you never know what OKC is going to do. I mean, would it surprise any of us here if OKC said we're just going to take Jaden Ivey over the big 3?
They
took Josh Giddey when Josh Giddey was supposed to fall to 12 last year, and they took him at 6.
I would be ecstatic if that happened, because this is what I got to ask you guys about. The number 4 pick, my Sacramento Kings, the perennial worst franchise in all of sports, get a little lottery luck here, get a chance to really get an impact player. So I know you guys don't follow the NBA as much, but the conversation really is around Jaden Ivey, Shayden Sharp, and Keegan Murray. Who do you think the Kings should select at number 4? Start with you, Steve.
Keegan Murray for me. I think
really. So I'm down on that idea. Why? Why should I be excited about having Keegan Murray in a Kings uniform?
I think Keegan Murray has the best chance outside the top 3 to be a star. He's a little bit of an older prospect, so he was on the Iowa team who had Luka Garza his freshman year. So the usage just wasn't really there. Going into his sophomore year, just exploded. Incredibly polished, well-rounded player on both sides. Shot 40% from 3. 131.2 offensive rating. Second of all the Power 5 players, higher than all 3 of the top guys that we've already talked about. And he was high usage. A usage rate over 30% with that offensive rating is a combo that you just don't see that much in college. He doesn't turn the ball over at all. 7th lowest turnover percentage in all of college basketball. Very smart around the rim on both ends. Top 100 block rate while not fouling basically at all. 2.3 fouls per 40.
Yeah,
so he knows how to control himself around the rim and not take himself out of games. Which you love to see. I think he's just going to be a double-double machine, very, very high floor. And the trajectory right now, I mean, he was a late bloomer just because they didn't have minutes or usage to give him. I think that his ceiling, we don't know what it is, but I mean, the jump that he just took in the last 12 months was just so massive. And I just love him as a player. I'm a Wizards fan. This is the exact guy that I would want them to take. He's not going to make it that far, though.
Yeah, it would be a trade, and of course that's been bandied about. You talked about the high floor, and the argument against him is, of course, the low ceiling, and the idea that with the lack of athleticism, he may never really develop to be an all-star. He's always going to be a complimentary type player. What would you say to those type of criticisms?
I think it's pretty lazy analysis.
Okay, that's good, because that was where I was going. Tell us why.
I just think that the ceiling is there. Yeah, no, he's not a explosive athlete like Jaden Ivey, but he's a much better player right now. I think he can play multiple positions. There are no questions defensively. He's a good kid. The 40% from 3 is just huge. Like, this is that Iowa team. Like, he was taking all of their big shots. He didn't have much help around him, especially this past year. They lost a lot of talent from that Garza team. I don't know. I think that he's going to be a star. I think there are more questions with guys that I also like. Like Jaden Ivey. Does he ever consistently make shots? We know that Keegan Murray is going to hit shots. We know that he's a good defender. He's a big kid. He can play multiple positions. I just think that he's a stud.
All right, Gavin. Steve's doing a pretty great job of selling me on Keegan Murray, and there's a lot of rumors that that's where he ends up. If you're like me, you're a Kings fan, who would you want in that number 4 pick? And, the names being bandied about are Ivey, Sharp, and Keegan Murray.
I'm taking Murray, and I don't have a ton more to add, about that from what Steve said. Now, that being said, I think if the Kings end up deciding that they're not taking Jaden Ivey, I think you have to trade that pick, because I think a lot of teams would pay a gargantuan price to go up and get Jaden Ivey at 4. Washington Wizards have been, speculating to do so. Mm-hmm. There's a couple teams that are talking about that pick, which I wanted to kind of bet Keegan to go to the Kings at like plus 250, but I just have that huge worry that if they do decide that it's not Ivey, they're going to trade the pick. So I couldn't get there.
Tyler, who do you think that we should take?
He just told you what they're going to do, spread. They're going to trade the pick. They haven't even
You
worked
and
out
Jonathan
Ivey.
Nelson.
They just
and it's diet.
Think about it, spread. If they're going to take it, they're right. He's going to take Murray. But I don't think they used the pick because they haven't worked out Ivey. They know they can get a king's ransom for the pick. So why not just trade it to the Knicks for a guy that can help you make the playoffs and their pick? Take a guy at 11. We all know they all want Jaden Ivey because everyone looks at him as the next John Morant. But
he's definitely not the next John Morant.
Yeah, let's get into Jaden Ivey right now because that's the guy that I kind of set my sights on. I was kind of, saying if we don't take Ivey, I'm going to be throwing stuff around the room again. And, it'll be like when we passed on Luka. You guys don't seem to be as high on him. Am I just getting blinded by athleticism here? I think it's fair to say he's the best athlete in the draft. Would you guys agree? Give me a breakdown of Ivey. Start with you, Steve.
Yeah, explosion, right? That's where you get the John Morant comp. He is not a point guard, though. He's more of a combo guard. Definitely a much, much worse passer than John Morant was at the same point. I really like Ivey. Me saying Keegan isn't because I don't like Ivey. It's just I just really like Keegan Murray. I think the question is going to be, like I said before, is the jump shot reliable? It was much better in year 2. He's always going to be able to drive and get buckets at the rim, but is he going to shoot enough? Where teams have to respect that. And I think fit will be big for him too, because he is like a combo guard. He's not a pure point guard like John Morant is.
Gavin, what are your thoughts on Jaden Ivey?
Yeah, dude, it's Russell Westbrook type quick twitch and explosion, man. It is a super downhill hardline runner. Like that being said, my concern with Jaden Ivey, which is even shocking to say, given that he's a coach's kid, his mom is the head coach at Notre Dame and played in the WNBA. His defense, dude, I'm not even talking bad for a number 4 overall pick. And yeah, sure, he might score 20 and be the most explosive offensive athlete. It's not even a lack of buy-in and want to on defense. It is absolute cluelessness working off the ball. Purdue got absolutely cooked from the perimeter this year. And yeah, Jaden Ivey has a lot of kind of highlight blocks where he's out of position and his athleticism, is able to get him back into a spot where he can sky up and swat the shit out of a guy who's 5'10" and jumps 29 inches like me. So yeah, the other thing is that with Purdue, you had a big donkey in the paint at all times throughout the game. So the lane was never really super cleared out for him ever. He really had to work to get there. That being said, I think the 3-point shot came a lot easier because Purdue was such a good offensive rebound and kickout team, which is where a lot of his threes came from. And he's kind of a push jump shooter. He pushes it. So you worry about moving a little bit further out to the NBA 3-point line. But those are the kind of concerns that you would have on the downside of the obvious explosive and athleticism.
Interesting. All right. You guys are making a great case here for Jaden Ivey. Tyler, any thoughts on Jaden Ivey?
No, I mean, they pretty much touched on everything. I was going to get to the point where Purdue always played with the big, but Gavin touched on it at the end. So they pretty much touched everything.
Yeah.
All right. So let's
keep
just
him in highlight reel, though. If you get to space.
It's just especially for a guy
what,
like me.
What would it take for you to be happy if they trade that pick spread? Like, what package back? Like, if they got, say the Wizards call, what would you take back as like all right, that's good enough for the 4th pick?
Nothing.
What about the Knicks?
Because
anything?
When you're really bad, you need to try, and maybe that's why I'm thinking Ivey Morris, because I just want that super high upside.
Yeah.
When you don't have
to take the swing.
And that's my problem with the Kings here is, to me, like this Sabonis is around the 30th best player in the league, and you're in win now mode with the 30th best player in the league. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. So I want to get a top guy. So that's what I'm hoping for, and I don't understand.
Well, you had a guy with huge upside, and you freaking traded him. We loved Halliburton.
I know. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible what they're doing. Anyways, we don't want to belabor that too much. So let's get into. Let's see. We've talked about Ivey, Keegan Murray. You know what? I know that most mocks have Sharp going higher, but let me get your guys' thoughts on Ben Mathurin. I hope I didn't pronounce that incorrectly, because I've seen a lot of people saying that they like him just as much as a prospect as Keegan Murray, and they play similar positions. Maybe I'm saying the name wrong. The kid out of Arizona, Steve. What do you think about Mathurin? Is that how do I say it?
Yeah, Benny Mathurin. This
Mathurin,
is Gavin's guy, so I'll let him have the stage here.
All right, let's hear it, Gav.
Yeah, it's a kid who's, he's from Quebec of Haitian descent. He came through the NBA Academy in Mexico City, played extremely well, like alongside Caleb Houston and RJ Nemhard for Canada and FIBA, and came into this year, with some decent buzz. He was more of a sharpshooter as a freshman, but really took over in terms of his own shot creation this year and being just a high level scorer while maintaining and improving his 3-point percentages. So I think I have the note about, his 2 years shooting threes. He's 37 and 42% in college versus Jaden Ivey, 25 and 35%. When Ben Mathurin is also, he's probably the best two-way wing, I would say, in this draft. And there's really no glaring red flags that I have on him. He can shoot, he can create, plays defense, extremely good motor, and can be an absolute perimeter pest for guys. So can work in the pick and roll. There's a lot of teams that he surely can make sense for, and I think is one of the best picks in this draft.
Yeah, Steve, that was my idea here. That we talk about high floor. It's almost impossible for me to see the way that this league values wings and not being at least a rotation player, right? I mean, looks like he's going to be a solid addition to whatever team he ends up on. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and NBA ready body. He's big, he's strong, super athletic. Gavin, I think he's probably the second best athlete outside of Ivey.
He doesn't quite have the quick twitch that he does, but he's pretty close. And yeah, I'd say he's definitely up there in the next tier after Jaden.
Yeah, doesn't turn the ball over. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that we loved all season. I see him going, in the back half of the top 10. But yeah, I mean, 3 and D is the absolute minimum. I think that he kind of like Keegan, there might be another level to Benny. And I would definitely be excited if my team drafted him.
Tyler, do you know anything about this kid out of Arizona, Mathurin?
I don't know much about him, but I was looking at his position prop, and he's listed at 6.5, and the over is -115. We know the first 4 to 5 guys pretty much. We just don't know the order of them. Does he jump over guys like a Shayden Sharp, who's a giant question mark? Do the Pacers go a different route, or do they trade this pick 2 spread because they've had rumors of trading everything?
Right. Yeah, they are a lot, right? Brogdon's on the block, Miles Turner's on the block.
Yeah.
So that's
Tyler, I actually took that over 6.5. I just think he doesn't have that many outs to go under that. Like you said, we pretty much know the top 5. And then you got Sharp. There are a couple other guys. I think he goes 6 at the absolute, highest.
I think that's the only way we get screwed is if they take him at 6.
Yeah. What do you think, Gavin?
I think he should go 4, but he probably.
So you like him more than Murray?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a different position. It's not the same player. Benny's more like a 6'4", 210 physical swingman, a 2-3, whereas Keegan's more of kind of a 3-4 in like, 6'8", 6'9 body.
Benny's 6'7", Gavin.
Yeah, without shoes, I bet he's like 6'4.5".
Shayden Sharp, we don't have a lot of information about him. Originally, he was the guy that I was like hoping we get it for, because like I said, when you're in the King situation, I think you just swing for the home run. But not a lot of great things coming out with his workouts. He wasn't particularly impressive from what I read. He wasn't an absolute disaster either in the workouts. But boy, a lot of unknowns. Do you know anything about this kid, Steve?
No, went to Kentucky. I think he reclassed, so he joined the team in like January, and they just never played him. It was kind of shady, Gavin, as to like what was going on. Like, was he not in shape? There were a lot of questions around.
I read they were going to get in trouble with the recruiting, and they didn't want to get everything taken away.
Yeah,
with the
I
way
mean,
that
this
he
guy
got
hasn't
there.
played. This guy hasn't played basketball in 2 years.
So watching Imani Bates flame out, I mean, trust me, I bet you they had worries about that as well. Same situation as 17-year-old trying to make the transition to college basketball as a guy who's been the dude carrying every team he's ever been on. So, yeah, I think that contributed. There's probably a little bit of everything involved in it.
All right, yeah. So we'll see where he goes. Obviously, it's really hard to make a when you don't have any tape, right? Because I think the high school tape can be
high
really
school
deceiving.
tape's a little. You just dominate the high school level. So
he can
take
score on a
much from
chair
that.
in a workout. That's pretty much what we know.
Yeah, and I think I might even be able to do that. Hey, so
I wouldn't
go ahead.
make much of the teams that are like, oh, this guy's flaming out in workouts, though. I'd take that with a grain of salt for one reason, because there's other reports out there. His first workout was with OKC, and they said that workout went great. He knows he's not going to, but if he starts to work out bad for other teams, he could 100% fall to 12 where they pick again. So he might be trying to manipulate his way to that spot.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So I'm just going off the Yahoo mock draft right now. They have the Pelicans taking Dyson Daniels, another guy that I know you guys aren't as high, not as high on, but didn't watch as much of because he played for the G League after coming out of Australia. But have you seen him at all, Steve? And what do you know about him?
No, like I feel uncomfortable talking about those guys just because we didn't cover them. So yeah, I don't know how to compare them to the guys that we do know, honestly.
Yeah, have anything for Dyson Daniels, or you want to just move on?
Just from what I've read, extremely apt perimeter defender and playmaker. There's questions about the jump shot of whether it's a full teardown operation or not. It's kind of slow, and it looks like you're unfolding a fucking chair when he shoots. But, I think he fits a lot of different teams as kind of, I want to say kind of like Josh Giddey, maybe. Long playmaker from Australia. I think there's a lot of parallels you can draw from them.
All right. Well, let's get into a guy that I'm really excited to talk to you guys about.
I was going to say he reminded me of Lonzo Ball a little bit.
Lonzo or
point
LaMelo?
Guard that could see the floor.
Yeah, I see it with an ugly ass jump shot.
With the ugly jump shot, it's perfect. It's the same player.
I wonder if he has a cool dad. Let's talk about Jalen Duren, because I really don't know what to make of him as a draft pick. Now, we've seen the center position get devalued the same way that the running back position has gotten devalued in the NFL. A lot of it is due to the rule changes, right? Because they can just run around free on the perimeter. So it makes center less important in the NBA. But at the end of the day, when you build, you can get away with having a weak perimeter defender, right? I can get away with having a LaMelo or a John Morant or a guy who can't defend. I need to have a good defensive center if I want to be a good defense. And this guy seems to check all the boxes here. Everything that I've read about him, they would say don't draft him just because he's a center, and center isn't worth as much. But not a lot of actual knocks on the way that he plays. He was in Memphis last year and just looks like he's just gonna the highlights. I mean, if you love block shots, he's got some of the best highlights that you've seen. Gavin, what are your thoughts on Jalen Duren out of Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, freak of nature, physical specimen, like Dwight Howard, DeAndre Jordan-ish. He's definitely going to be the best in the draft at catching a lob and flushing it down, and that's where he definitely excels as a roller in the pick and roll game. But yeah, it looks like just with the offensive limited kind of shooting range, I would say there's a little bit more risk inherent with it. And my thing with Jalen Duren is his motor. It just seemed like there were some times he was just checked out during in big games too. So, I think there's a little bit of worries around that. I took him over 10.5.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I think some of those come to fruition kind of as we get there. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm a little bit lower on him relative to a lot of people.
What do you think, Steve?
Not shockingly, my thoughts align with Gavin's. my issue with Duren, right? So he had a lot of highlight reel blocks. But if you go and look at the stats, 3.3 blocks per 40. I think that issue with taking Duren is I think that there's a better center in this draft, and Mark Williams from Duke.
I was going to bring him up. Yeah.
Better offensive player for sure. Better defensive player, I think. Mark Williams had Gavin, 138.9 O rating, highest in the country for any Power 5 player. Just monster block upside, incredible rim protector and defender in the paint. Really intuitive offensive rebounder too. Like his positioning, timing. This is a guy who, at the beginning of the year was playing like 18, 20 minutes a game. And then as the season went on, he was just forcing himself onto the court more and more. And, that's really when Duke took off, was when they were playing Mark 30, 33 minutes a game. He shot 73% from the free throw line. Makes me think, there might be something in there, to develop. And then I do like, he absolutely smashed tier A opponents on KenPom. 143 O rating against tier A opponents, clearly the best in the entire country. If I was taking a center in the lottery, it would be Mark Williams for sure.
If I'm Charlotte, I'm just praying that he gets all the way down to 13. Tyler, Jalen Duren is mocked a lot to the Knicks. What would you be happy if he ended up on your squad?
I mean, it's such a Knicks and Thibodeau pick, isn't it?
I know.
That's the 7-footer who's 250, who 10 years ago would have been the most coveted player in this draft by far. They just take him. If they were in a top 5, they'd probably reach and take him. That's just such a Knicks thing to do. But I think San Antonio is actually going to take him at 9.
Really?
I think they kind of need a big that's going to be able to plug the middle. Like, Podol can't really plug the middle. Like, he's an all-right player, but he just can't defend it all. You need a big guy that can defend. And I agree. I think Mark Williams, if on the board at 13, you could lock him in. Charlotte's not letting them past him.
All right, let's talk about the kid out of Wisconsin, Johnny Davis here. A lot of people are really high on this kid. 6'5", 194 pounds, average close to 20 points per game last year. What do you think of Johnny Davis, Steve?
Yeah, huge jump between year 1 and 2. Kind of like the way Keegan Murray did, just plays a different position. He's like a 6'4", 6'5" guard. Not a pure point guard though. Is not a great passer. Only averaged 2 assists per game. He's just a volume scorer. He plays in the mid range, which concerns me a bit. Not a great shooter from deep. Shot 31%. Did shoot 39% his freshman year, but he was the entire team for Wisconsin. So guy carrying the load, volume score. That's actually kind of my concern, even if that sounds weird, right? Like he had these great stats because he was good, but like the percentages don't jump out. And I just have concerns that he's just like a mid-range scorer only. And do you take that kind of player in the top 10?
Interesting. What do you think, Gav?
Yeah, not the most explosive guy either. But, he's still pretty athletic, definite want-to type of defender. Kind of reminds me with that mid-range game, a little bit of like a early DeMar DeRozan in a sense, but plays a little bit better defense. He can operate in the pick and roll, so he works for a team that potentially needs to push a point guard off ball for a couple possessions at a time and run him off screens or handoffs, and he can definitely do that. Yeah, he started to break down last year a little bit. His volume and shooting and what he meant to that team, he started having kind of lower leg issues, I think. But we saw him make kind of the same big jump that Mathurin did when they started playing on that Team USA team, and they just kind of carried it into the season. So, I don't have any issue with Johnny Davis. I think he's a super high floor guy who might not have the ceiling of some of the other wings around him. But, great player. You're not going to lose your GM spot over picking him.
What do you think about this kid, Tyler? He might end up being a Knick.
Yeah, he's another one. I hear he's a very feisty defender. They say they give him like the best primary defense. He's the primary defender on most teams. So Thibodeau does factor in defense a lot. I think they might look at him, but there's a third guy on the board we haven't talked about yet. I think who is going to end up being pick number 11 if they're.
Then break it down, and then
AJ Griffin.
Yeah, that was who I was going to next. I know you're really
I knew
high
you'd be
on
an
him.
AJ Griffin guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, lanky 3-and-D wing that could shoot threes. I think Thibodeau would love him on that team. I think he fits perfect next to RJ Barrett. And that also gives them another out to just kind of, throw Randall to the Wolves and trade him for something else because he's got to go.
Steve, what do you think of AJ Griffin? He kind of disappointed this season. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, he had a weird year. Like his minutes were up and down. He missed a couple games. Elite shooter from the perimeter. Shot 45% as a true freshman. Yeah, he is like the prototypical 3-and-D guy. I guess I wouldn't call it an issue just because like that is super valuable in and of itself. The 3-and-D. I don't know if he can be anything besides that. It's totally fine if you're a 3-and-D guy who, and that's your role. I just think that the difference between like him and a Mathurin is I think Benny can be more than that. And I think AJ Griffin, like this is what he's going to be, and he's going to be damn good at it, which is why he's going to be a top 12 pick. But yeah, not my favorite guy in the draft just because I guess I'm pigeonholing him into that one role.
Yeah, but to be fair, you can in the new NBA, you can never have too many of those shooters
and spread it
defend.
at pick 11. If I told you were getting Robert Covington at 18 years old, you take it.
Yeah,
that's who he is.
I'd probably take it too. So yeah,
I think so too. Seems pretty safe. Gavin, do you agree with this little breakdown here of AJ Griffin?
No, I don't like him.
All right, let's hear it.
When you play pickup ball, how many knee sleeves do you wear?
I've played for 15 years.
This guy wears like 4 knee sleeves at a time. I don't like 18-year-olds off multiple knee operations. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff about his defense, like, yeah, he's got long arms, the 7-foot wingspan kind of jumps off on the paper. But dude, his feet are in fucking cement. Like he does not move his feet for shit. And I think it has to do with losing some of the explosiveness from these knee operations. It's the biggest medical red flag player in the entire draft. And there's a good chance that he never plays even like 60 games a year and doesn't make it 4 or 5 years to the second contract because of the injuries. So I wouldn't take the stab at 11. I get why people are with the shooting upside, but there's just a lot of red flags compared to other guys who we could think about at this spot for me.
All right. Here's a guy that I have no idea about, but he's being mocked pretty high. Jeremy Sochan out of Baylor. Gavin, what do you think of him?
Yeah, this is another one of my flag plants. I think this is one of the most interesting guys in this entire draft, and I would definitely take him over Griffin. I think he's the only true 1 through 5 defensive switcher. We literally saw when he played against North Carolina, guard Armando Bacot, and the next possession in a pick and roll switch on to Caleb Love and give Caleb Love hell 30 feet away from the basket. Like, extremely unique type of asset for a team to have. Now, you certainly have questions about the shot, the jump shot, and the efficiency. He doesn't have the greatest post-up game for a guy of his size who could exploit mismatches if he did have a more post-up game. But, again, goes back to the bloodlines. I think both his parents were basketball players and certainly scouts like that. And God forbid if he develops a jump shot, I mean, he could be one of the top 5 best players out of this draft, when we look back and when it's all said and done.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to ask about him because I hadn't heard a lot about him. But boy, that sounds pretty attractive.
Like you always throw out Draymond as the comp for a 1 through 5 switcher, but he's way more athletic than Draymond. I just think he has way more upside than what even as Draymond as defensive player of the year and what he meant to Golden State. I think Sochan could be a way better player given the athleticism if he gets any sort of offensive development.
Wow, that sounds pretty exciting. Steve, do you agree?
This is your what do you call it? Like blank slate, all intangible guy in the top 15, right? He's definitely the most raw of any guy that we've talked about, except maybe Duren. So yeah, I mean the theoretical upside is there. Elite defender already, so at the very least, that's what you're getting. And like Gavin said, like if he ever learns how to shoot, he's going to be a force. But that's the issue with taking him over some of the guys that we've talked about is a question mark. whereas some of these other guys have already shown that. So yeah, upside, just raw. But yeah, definitely an exciting and really unique player for sure.
All right, Tyler, do you have any thoughts about him?
I don't, but I did want to bring up one other name since we're talking about these guys that are like switch defenders who get their hands in passing lanes. Because there's another name that keeps popping up every time I look up draft stuff. Tari Eason out of LSU. What do you guys think about him?
Preach, baby.
That's my guy. I love Tari. Yeah, one of the props that we'll talk about at the end has to do with him. So he came off the bench for LSU, Tyler, just like a tenacious, annoying defender who's also huge, right? So like his counting stats aren't awesome, but he was playing 19, 22 a game. So like his per 40. All right, so just real quick. So there's top three guys, right? We talked about Chet, Jabari, and Paolo. So their per 40s, Chet 21 points, Jabari 23.6, Paolo 20.9, right? Tari Eason 27.7 points per 40, 3.2 steals per 40, 11 rebounds per 40, shot 36% from three. The knock on him is that he's too aggressive sometimes. So, he'll foul and he'll turn it over, but explosive in transition. He would fit on a team that likes to push pace. I think if a team that plays a slower type of game, Gavin, I think he would, that just wouldn't fit with him. But yeah, played 58% of minutes. I think that the foul issues, won't be as big of a deal. You get the extra foul in the NBA. But yeah, I know Gavin loves him too, so I'll let him slobber over Tari a bit as well.
No, we don't have to do a ton more, but yeah, a team that likes to grab and go is certainly where I've seen a lot of it where he's mocked to kind of Chicago in the teens or 18. But yeah, like if you put him on a team in the Cavaliers, like with an Evan Mobley, I mean, that's a scary kind of defensive idea to think about. So yeah, he came in a little bit shorter. I think he was like 6'4.5" without shoes, whereas I thought he was more of kind of a 6'7", 6'8", which, you probably still need to uptick. He made a drastic improvement in his shooting coming from Cincinnati to LSU, but he's still got to continue to improve on that. And he's still a relatively old prospect. I'm pretty sure he was a senior last year, Steve, or at least a junior, redshirt junior, depending on COVID years and whatnot.
I don't have his age right here, but yeah, I think he was a third-year player.
I'm seeing 21. It would listed him as a sophomore.
Okay, yeah, he's fine then.
All right, the last player before we're just going to start choosing them at random, and I'm probably going to get this name wrong. Agbaji, he's the guard out of Kansas. That's a senior. What are your thoughts on him, Steve?
Yeah, dominant college scorer. Really, really good shooter, improved every single year. So he played 4 years at Kansas, right? 31% from three his freshman year, 34, 38, and 41 this past year. And what's encouraging is, his usage and, the part of the team that he was increased for each of those years too, right? So, improved efficiency and volume at the same time. Super encouraging. One of the best like pure scorers in the draft. Gavin could probably talk more about like the rest of his game, but yeah, I think he's definitely a contributor. I don't know if I see like star player ceiling. He is older, but we've seen a good amount of these older prospects being taken just outside the lottery the last couple of years and be, real solid contributors in the NBA. I think he's of that mold. Yeah, I mean, super safe isn't going to show up and not score. So
I think that's going to be a new frontier in NBA drafting, especially if you're drafting later and you're already a playoff team. Why do you want to spend 3 years to develop a guy? Some of these guys that come in, you're not really getting the best out of them. Like Jaden Ivey might be a guy might not really pop until year 3 or year 4, right? So you're going to end up,
Right.
waiting for a little while. you're a lottery team, of course.
I think if he turns out to be a stud like we all think, I think it's going to be right off the bat because those systems.
Maybe that was a bad example, but you get my point, right?
I get what you mean, but like the system he played in at Purdue with the bigs down low and clogging the lane, they just don't do that in the NBA.
I hate Matt
Like he might walk into the NBA and be like, "Oh, the lane's open every time," like and just start averaging like 25 right off the bat.
That was a bad example, but my point is, you get these guys where you get the full rookie contract, and they're contributing all 5 years. I think that's an advantage that the GMs aren't looking for if you're already in the playoffs, right? Gavin, what do you think about him?
Yeah, probably
his name right. How do you say his name?
Ochai Agbaji.
But
okay. Yeah, I mean, as high of a floor for probably any prospect that's going to go, either in the last 2 picks of the lottery or outside the lottery. And probably works best for a team like a Portland, who might think about trading that. I think they're 7th pick or whatnot.
Yeah.
But trading down, getting him who could, immediately help Portland like that, I think would be kind of the perfect fit for him. But yeah, senior coming out, so you don't know kind of how much more ceiling he does have, even with the improvements. So probably not, doesn't get to an all-star level, but I think, is going to be a really competent kind of third scorer on a solid team.
And I mean, that's an important role. We've seen a lot of teams that fell out, right? Because they just don't have enough options, right? And you don't want just 2 stars taking a my turn, your turn approach. So, all right. So those are the guys that I had pretty much circled. Talk about, Steve, we'll start with you. Who are some guys that are going to go later in the draft? And then it's about the time to start looking at some bets. What are some over-unders or some draft props that you're looking at?
Yeah, so we already talked about my first flag plant, which is Tari Eason. I have a couple more, but the first one is EJ Liddell from Ohio State. He shot 38% from 3 this past year. He's like a power forward, might have to play more of a wing role in the NBA. He's not super tall, but he is a really good defender, especially around the rim. Smart as hell defensively. For a 6'7" guy, he just blocks a ton of shots. He's always in the right spot, and he comes from the weak side to block a lot of shots, trailing in transition. Just an extremely high basketball IQ. I think he steps in and is a useful piece from day one. There's a prop that's tied to him. DK has these who goes first props. And I got EJ Liddell plus 120 to go before the European prospect Nikola Jovic. I think we could see him go in the late teens. Just the type of guy that I think fits really, really well in the modern NBA. If Liddell was a year younger and 3 inches taller, I think people are talking about him going to the top 10. So huge fan of him. Hoping to see him go in the top 20.
All right, Gav, who's someone that a little later in the draft that you're excited about?
How about a West Coast boy that needs more attention because nobody ever saw him play his games, but Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara, 6'6" point forward, that who can truly score at all 3 levels. 50% from the field, over 40% from 3. Every single year at Santa Clara, and over 80% from the free throw line. He's best in working as the pick and roll ball handler, but can also, act as a screener and either flare or short roll and catch a short roll and kick it to a corner. Extremely versatile long guy who, like I was talking about earlier, if you need someone who's able to have the ball handling that can push a point guard, off the ball for a little bit, this is the perfect guy to do it with. And he's kind of been rising up, draft boards. I think once he got to the combine and started playing against other guys, of the higher caliber Power 5 schools, and not only held his own, but really excelled. I think it kind of opened the eyes of the GM. So he probably goes, I would say low 20s, probably similar to EJ, but I think could be a really interesting player in the NBA with some really good upside late in the draft.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking at these. So I got that same number on Bookmaker that you were talking about. Tyler, did you have any draft bets yet?
The couple I was looking at, we on Bet Online, none of us think
there right now.
none of us think Mark Williams falls past the Hornets, who are in dire need of a center. And he could also go ahead of Duren. His position is 13.5, which is the Charlotte's first pick is 13. The under there is plus 125. I think that's an auto bet at this point.
Yeah, I already bet that one too.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. That one stuck out to me. And then the Tari Eason one, 17.5. The Rockets' second pick on the board is 17. They've mocked him there a ton. Their front court really doesn't play much defense. And if they draft Paolo, they're not getting much defense with that. But if you draft Tari Eason, you're bringing in some defense with that. So I could see them doing that. And you guys said he would fit in one of those teams that just up-tempo, run and gun.
Yeah.
What better place than Houston with all those guys? And
I love it.
his under on that's minus 120, so I would bet that. And then one prospect I think who could end up turning out being a lot better than his position is just due to injuries he had late in the season, Ty Washington. What do you guys think? You think he could end up being a better player?
So, I mean, how many freaking Kentucky guards are in the NBA that are way better players than they were under Calipari? I mean,
Yeah.
Booker, Hero, Quickly, Maxey, De'Aaron Fox, the fucking list goes on. So it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, Ty's a good player. I'd say back end of the lottery, probably 15-ish range. So those are all the bets that I had. I took a stab on Tari Eason top 10 at 25-1.
Oh, nice.
And then, we talked about Keegan Murray under 5.5, but that line's gone. And then we talked about the Benny Mathurin over 6.5. I think would be unlucky to lose that one because, like we said, the top 5, we pretty much think we know who those 5 are going to be. And then you just have to get past that 6th spot in Indiana.
Let's go over some of these right now.
One other one that stuck out to me before you go spread. EJ Liddell, Steve, you talked about him. His draft position's 22.5, under minus 120. I think that's worth a bet too, because I just like you said, I think he goes in like the mid-teens, maybe like the late teens.
So you like his under 22?
Yeah, I like the under 22 there.
All right, I'm just going to go over the board right now, and you guys just give me your quick thoughts. AJ Griffin over 11.5. What would you take, Steve?
I think he's a threat to go to the Wizards at 10, and like Tyler said, New York at 11. I didn't bet that, but I leaned the under, just because those types of guys are so valued.
Do you agree, Gavin?
Yeah, he's going to get some extra kudos being Adrian Griffin's kid and how, Adrian Griffin is seen throughout the NBA. So he's a little more of a high variance guy for me. So I don't really want to lay a ton of juice with him because, if a couple teams do get scared.
Well, if you take the under, it's plus 123 right now.
So that's not bad. I would probably lean towards either side that just had the juice, given I think this is just a volatile, guy who could go as high as, they were talking about top 5 kind of earlier on in the draft process, or if teams do get skittish of the medicals, he could slide to 14, 15, something like that.
All right. And so we already did this one. Mathurin, you like the over 6.5 there, right?
Yeah. I mean, we love the player, but I think that's just a, crunching the numbers, he can really only go 6, and there are, I think, a handful of guys who could actually go 6.
This one's interesting after your guys' breakdown. Dyson Daniels over 7.5 plus 118. What do you think of that one, Steve?
I think he's one of the guys who are in the mix in that 6-7 range. So I probably won't personally bet the G League guys just because I think, I know that I know less about them and, their fits. So.
Do you see any value on that one, Gavin?
Not really. It feels like he's going to go like 7 or 8. This is kind of the range of the Sharp versus Daniels versus kind of Griffin. So, I think if he doesn't go 7, he probably goes 8. So I don't really have a strong take on it.
Jalen Duren sitting here at over 10.5, minus 117, unders minus 107. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
I took the over on 10.5. I don't think the Wizards take him at 10. I think the Wizards actually end up taking Johnny Davis at 10. I took the over 10.5. You touched on it. There's a lot of taking a center in the top 10. There's a lot of I don't know, research to say that that's probably not the way to go.
Right.
And like we said before, I think that Mark Williams is better than him anyways. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes before Duren does.
All right. Sounds good. So Chan, or actually get your thoughts on that one. Gavin, over 10.5 there for Duren.
Yeah, I bet it earlier, probably, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I guess we can get burned by the Spurs. But then I think about, man, Jalen Duren and Pop is a bad combination, man. Like, man, they're going to end up cage fighting. Like, I just feel like where Pop is screaming at him to fucking play hard and play defense, and Duren's just like shrugging his shoulders. I could see that being a disaster scenario. So I'm just going to take the over 10.5, given I don't see the Wizards going there. And likely the Knicks are taking a center probably with that first pick, I would imagine.
Okay. So Chan,
I like that one too, just to touch on that, because
you like the over?
Yeah, just like the Benny prop. If he's gonna go 9. I don't see Portland taking him, and I don't see Indiana taking him. So, and he's not going any higher than that.
Yeah, and no one's trading up for a center.
God forbid any team reaches on a different prospect and say Benny drops to 9. Like, that's where he's. I like that prop even more. I think that 10.5 is probably the best bet we've talked about.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I just placed that as well. Sochan, Jeremy Sochan, over 12, a little bit juice to the over there. Do you think that juice is correct, Steve?
I mean, this is the wild card in the lottery. I think the teams, can get caught up in what Gavin was saying. The theoretical upside is huge. So, with guys that are more volatile like this, probably a pass for me. And I don't know. I don't have
and that's fair. We don't need to bet everyone. I was just going through the board real quick. Gav, you talked about Duren driving Pop crazy. It sounds like this Sochan guy would make Pop want to delay his retirement a little bit. Do you think he would fit in there with San Antonio? And where do you think he would fit the best? And what do you think of this over 12 bet?
Yeah, I think he fits, great in San Antonio, just culture wise. He's going to be a super low maintenance, high motor guy, which the Spurs are obviously going to want. So yeah, I think it makes sense. Now here's where I am at Sohan. I think I would definitely take him inside of that, but I could see where he slides because teams start reaching one. Because once you start reaching out of the top 3-4 guys like, Ivey, Mathurin, Daniels, Griffin, Johnny Davis is up there. You're operating with less options, at 10, 11, 12, if you want to get a wing. So you might have to go then to get him, which could push Sohan out a little bit. But yeah, like I think has plenty of the upside. If he went to like even the Blazers, I wouldn't be completely surprised. I think, yeah, you probably want the jump shot a little bit further along to help Damian, but just a super unique player that plugs into damn near any type of roster construction rotation. It doesn't matter just because of his skill set.
Man, you guys are getting me excited about how these players translate. Tyler, I already know your answer on this one. Johnny Davis, under 11, juice to the under, -132, overs +108. I know Tyler thinks that he goes to Washington at 10. What do you think of that bet, Steve?
I bet the under 10.5. Let me see what I got it at. -114 on FanDuel.
That's a great number because it's out to -132 on under 11 at Bookmaker.
I think he does go to Washington at 10.
How does he fit with Beal?
Well, do they know? What a situation the freaking Wizards are in. No, I think that they just need more.
Out of the three of us, who has the most hopeless franchise? I mean, we really
the Angels. I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, blowing Mike Trout is one thing, but as far as the NBA, I mean, 3 more hopeless squads than the Kings, the Knicks, and the Wizards. I mean, what are we doing here, guys?
I guess it does help, for an NBA draft podcast because you're talking about 3 teams in the top 11,
and we'll probably be
every year
lottery picks next year, right? Because I mean these teams just can never seem to get it right. I think Beal's really tough to build around, and all these teams that want to give up the farm, I don't really know like what contender he really pushes over the top.
Bill's in Miami next year.
That might be one because their defense is so good they can absorb.
Yeah, they'll dump like the Tyler Heroes and the Duncan Robinsons.
I would at this point. I don't think I might rather have Tyler Hero.
The moment Tyler Hero said, "This is my third year. I want to be a starter," Pat Riley looked at that and said, "Okay, you're the first guy."
Riley probably just more
you can go start in Washington. How about
that? Yeah, you can start.
You're gonna go start over here.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay. Interesting to see where it goes there. But you guys both like that. I think at the juice, I'm going to lay off at minus 132. But if there's some buyback, maybe I'll look into that. I think I already have my answer here. And the juice is telling me I have the answer. But we just got to ask. Keegan Murray under 5.5 is now out to minus 164. Gavin, is that the correct move?
Yeah, probably. There's a scenario where it goes Ivey Mathurin before Keegan. Because I was looking for how can you play devil's advocate against Keegan, and part of it is that in the Big Ten he had such unbelievable athleticism and matchup disadvantages. Whether it was one of the slow, plotty centers trying to guard him, or whether it was someone smaller, he was the highest post efficiency player in all of college basketball last year. So, is that a component of having the athleticism and strength advantage over smaller guys? And does that translate to the NBA, or is he really just that good? I tend to think that the kid just is an absolute bucket. So yeah, I'm probably not betting it, but I could see a scenario at least where it does happen.
I apologize, Brandon, for not getting you guys involved.
For the guys that already bet that like Steve and got the plus money on it, I think it's a good hedge just to bet Benny as the number 5 overall pick at plus 650.
So you really
because it's one or the other. It all just comes down to
Sharp. There's no chance of Sharp in Detroit.
I just don't see it.
I don't know enough about Sharp personally.
I just know that he was the number 1 overall, and I know that these guys
for next year. Yeah,
think about the things Detroit's planning to do here. Spread. They're looking to move Jeremiah Grant out. Both of those guys slot right into his position. Shayden Sharp doesn't. Shayden Sharp plays the same position as Bay. Probably don't want to move him out of the rotation.
I think when you're crappy, you just get them all. You just amass talent. I think you just get the best player available.
Too. Well, you kind of got to go.
I don't think Detroit's team building, especially with the way the East looks right now. I mean, I don't think they're like.
Do we go the Sacramento route and just draft like 6 point guards in a row?
To be fair, yeah, you're right. We should have taken Şengün last year. All right, so yeah, under 5.5, minus 164. You guys think it's priced correctly? This one. So Mark Williams under 13.5 is plus 130.
Yep, bet it.
You don't think they try and get cute and try and get him at 15?
I think there's a possibility that the Spurs take him over Duren at 9.
I mean, he had the best block.
What if there's another team that covets him and they think Charlotte's going to take him at 13 and they trade up above him and get him?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Williams, this is probably a flag plant for me. I think he's going to be a much better pro than Jalen Duren. So
should I just bet this right now because I'm getting plus money?
I bet it once Tyler said that Charlotte needs a center.
I'm just worried they try and get cute and grab him at 15. What do you think, Gav?
It's scary because, the Hornets can play that game of, Cleveland doesn't need a center, so we can go guard here. Well,
right.
Cleveland's also apt to trade their asses back, and someone can come up and scoop them right in front of you, knowing that, you want to get them at 15. So I think Hornets just got to go their guy at 13, whether that is, Williams or Duren, whoever is available. I think they have to, but I'm actually going to segue because around that same pick is where my best prop bet is at.
Okay, let's hear it.
And that's Malachi Branham over 13 plus 100. His odds have, spiked up unbelievably after a report that the Knicks will look at him for a workout. Now they selected 11, which means you're talking about picking him over, potentially one of the litany of these wings, whether it's Johnny Davis, AJ Griffin, if Sharp is still there, you're talking about taking him over one of those guys, which I think is a little bit tough. He really did nothing to speak of for the start of the year and then kind of came out of nowhere the second half as really the main shot creator that the team was so devoid of without Dwayne Washington from the year before. But then once you get to, the Thunder at 12, I don't see them taking, another guard when you already have SGA and Giddey there. I see the Thunder like swinging for the fences after getting Chet second, I think, and going like someone like that Osume Jang dude who can kind of be like a 6'8", 6'9", grab and go point forward type to keep moving the ball. I see them taking a swing for the fences at 12. And then you get to Charlotte, who he's worked out for. So that can be a little scary. And that's where you're playing the Cleveland won't draft a center game. So who do we take at 13 or 14? I tend to think that they just take their guy and don't mess around, that being a center. So put a good chunk on Malachi Branham over 3, even money.
Over 13?
Yeah. Did I say
Hawk,
3? Yeah, 13.
we didn't. I didn't bring him up. I'm sorry. I skipped over him when we were doing our previews. I just see that he's 6'5". He averaged 13 points and 3 rebounds. What is your overall thoughts on him, Steve?
Scoring only guard, isn't going to give much else besides that. Like Gavin said, kind of had a sleepy start to the season. Came on strong late. Talented kid, and I do like that bet though. I don't see him going in the top 12. And then one last note on that Mark Williams bet. After Duren and Williams, this, that's like a tier of centers. And then Gavin, I don't really see another center until like Walker Kessler, who will probably go like late in the first round. So if you miss on your guy, you're not getting an impact center in this draft.
Do you guys like Kessler? He seems like if you're in the 20s and you just need a backup rim protector, he seems like he's good to go, ready to go in the NBA. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, so he was my third flag plant that, I had some extras in case we kept that going for longer. I mean, he is all of 7'1", just game-altering rim protection, best shot blocker in college basketball.
He's better than Williams even?
He was last year. I mean, wow, okay. 7.1 blocks per 40.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, just like I said, game-altering rim protection. Kind of got a raw deal when he went to UNC. So he was a 5-star coming out, picked just a terrible fit, didn't play that much, transfers to Auburn, and just absolutely smashed. I think so. He currently doesn't have much of. I mean, he didn't take that many threes. I don't know if he can't or if he can't develop that. If he ever adds a shot, he is going to be a force. So I had him as a flag plant. Shot 73% from the field with a 124 offensive rating. Really good player as is. I think he's a useful, like you said, bench big man who, if he ever adds a shot, watch out.
Gavin, I really like this guy. And if I was on like a playoff team, in the 20s, that's who I'd be targeting. What do you think?
Yeah, if you believe in that jump shot, then he works perfectly for someone like a Milwaukee. Who you're going to need a center to pull out, away from the basket. And if he does develop a 3-point shot, which some teams are buying it, some teams are not, then you could have one of the best steals of the draft because he's probably just a tick lower than Chet in terms of, defensive prowess. I don't know if he's as quick and instinctual as Chet is down low, especially coming from the weak side. And I think part of the reason why his block numbers were so much crazier than Chet's was that the style of that Gonzaga. Nobody pushes the ball inside in the West Coast Conference to drive it on Chet Holmgren, right? In Auburn plays a super in-your-face type closeout defense where they're begging you to blow by them because they have Walker Kessler in the paint, and teams did it all the time, and he would rack up 9, 10, 12 blocks a game, and it was insane. Just people jumping right into him, and like he's not going to swat the shit out of him. Super advanced player, and yeah, he was like the fourth big at UNC behind Garrison Brooks, Armando Bacot, and then that sharp dude. I can't even remember his name. Really came into his own last year. You could have one of the steals of the draft if the jump shot, a 3-point shot specifically, follows through.
Yeah, 4 triple doubles with blocks this season.
Wow. I see the Agbajis at over 13.5 minus 147. Do you think that seems right, Steve?
Yeah, that seems right about where I think he should and probably will go.
Okay, well, I'm not going to bet that at that number then. What do you think, Gavin?
I bet a little bit on the over. I think he's kind of the perfect fit for a Cleveland team that just kind of realized that they were probably a little bit closer than they thought they were coming into last season than when they ended the year. And I think Agbaji is kind of the perfect fit, to mesh with, like a team that's not as far away compared to, like the Hornets. It might be a couple more pieces away, and God forbid, like the Rockets at 17. So yeah, there's still all those, wings that you're probably going to have to pick him over one of them, especially if you have one of the bigs going to the Hornets. So yeah, I kind of like the over on the Agbaji. But I think you might get better odds than the 137 if you shop it.
Okay. So that's all I've got, guys. Is there someone that I've left out? Is there some guys that are going to blow up out of the second round? It seems like every year there's a couple second round players. Tyler, was there any bets you made that I didn't bring up?
No, I was just wondering if any of you guys see any of the exact order bets for like the top four.
There's no way they're going to hang those this year.
Yeah, I was looking for them. I could
Nope.
not find them anywhere. I thought maybe they would at least hang the top four because that fourth pick could get a little wacky. But
because they're basically giving you a 3-leg correlated parlay. They ain't gonna show it when the order seems pretty cemented at this point.
Yeah, no, but as far as second round guys, I wrote down two that I think will contribute. Andrew Nembhard from Gonzaga, I think has long-term reliable backup point guard kind of written all over him. 6'4", really improved his shot once he transferred to Gonzaga. Shot 38% from three, so he's not going to kill you there. Shot 87% from the line. Doesn't turn it over at all, and super deadly in transition, like 7 assists per 40. He's a facilitator first, not a guy who's looking to score every possession. So yeah, I think he goes in the second and is safe. And then Christian Brown from Kansas can really score it all three levels, kind of sneaky athlete from KU. Shot 39% from three. Not a good defender really, but I could see like a bench scoring role for Christian Brown. Better like ancillary stats than you would think. 7.5 rebounds per 40 and over 3 assists per 42. So, two kind of stats stuffers that could go in the second round that I think can make teams.
Gavin, who do you like for sleepers?
Jake LaRavia out of Wake Forest, kid that transferred from Indiana State to where he was more of kind of an elbow player, at a mid-major, and then came to Wake Forest to play for the Steve Forbes kind of two-man pick and roll and open spread flex type offense. And we really saw him flourish, especially as the screener in the pick and roll game with ACC Player of the Year, Alondis Williams. I think elite as a flare from the screen, like in a pick and pop scenario. I think he has a game that's actually, as crazy as it sounds, really similar to Paolo's without a lot of the physicality and flash. He could even handle it as the pick and roll guy in certain scenarios. He is a really underrated passer. He's extremely instinctual and puts himself in good positions to rebound, which allows him to accumulate pretty high numbers, even without the kind of high-end athleticism that he might be facing some of his guys. I think the perfect kind of guy who's going to hang in the NBA for 10, 12 years and be an extremely useful role player for someone.
All right. Well, thank you, guys. I feel like I know a lot more about this draft class just talking with you guys. Steve, let's help out the viewers. Let's, they don't want to outlay, 30 units on the draft. So just give them one bet, your favorite bet out of everything that's on the board right now.
Yeah, I think after talking through it, since the line is gone on my Keegan Murray under 5.5, I'll stick with the Ben Mathurin over 6.5. We talked through that. I think we really only get burned at 6
by the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Ben and over on a guy that I love so much. It's just the way the board's falling. I think that he ends up going 7 or 8.
Who's to say the Pacers don't take hometown boy Johnny Davis and just give him the keys to the kingdom,
Yeah, true.
Do they need another guard? Wouldn't that be kind of Kings-esque?
Yeah, kind of.
But those things happen, there's a reason why
if you're in the lottery, you take the best player available. Because obviously the guys that you already have aren't good enough or you wouldn't be in the lottery, right?
Right.
So
that makes too much sense, Spread.
Tyler, what's your favorite bet for the draft on Thursday?
My favorite is going to be that Mark Williams under 13.5. We get right around plus 125. I mean, I think there's multiple ways he goes under that 13.5. The Hornets are at 13. I think he could go there. If the Thunder get crazy in that top 3, which we've seen before, and say they go Jaden Ivey at 2, they pick at 12 again. Maybe they go get their big man there and they take Mark Williams at 12. We know the Knicks love taking big men. They might take him at 11 with Mitchell Robinson walking out the door. Washington's front court isn't solidified, and neither San Antonio. So there's a ton of ways this dude goes under 13.5. So that's going to be my favorite one.
All right. I like that too. Gavin, what do you think? What's your favorite one?
So looking at the live Branham line, it's definitely the Branham, but he's up to it's 13.5 now. So that's unfortunate because I just bet it, I think this morning. But it's
14.5 on DraftKings.
Yeah, so you better bet it quick. I don't know if I like the 14.5. I still like the 13.5 with, we wouldn't push with the Hornets, but I still think the Hornets go big men there at 13.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Final one, Josh in the chat. We didn't bring up Wendell Moore. You high on him at all, Steve?
Guy who'll go late first, early second, maybe. Really solid contributor in all categories. Doesn't really flash in one specific way, which is why he's going to be a late first, early second guy. But I think he's a winning type of player that is like a team first, can do everything that you want type of guy, but is never going to be like the flashy scorer or anything like that.
Gavin, what are your thoughts on Wendell Moore?
Yeah, you're never going to run offense or plays through him, but he's going to do everything that most of the other guys don't want to do. He's going to get down his stance and probably take on one of the better matchups, like he did game in and game out when he was playing for Duke. He's that type of kind of alpha mindset, but is just a phenomenal culture guy who is going to be beneficial to any team that drafts him.
Oh, well, that sounds pretty good. All right, is there anything I left out?
I just want to touch on my sleeper of the draft. Michael Foster, G League player. Okay. 6'9", 235. Mind you, he played in the G League, so he's playing against some pros and some other guys that aren't really all that good. But 15 points per game, 48% shooting from the field, 3 assists and 2 blocks. And the dude's projected to go late second. I think he could be a sleeper in the draft.
All right.
We've seen Jalen Green put right up around 15 points per game in the G League. Look where he's at now.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing about the G League is there are, the full-grown adults in there, so it does translate to some success. So, guys, I feel like I know like 10 times the amount that I did at the beginning of the show. So, I thank you guys for hanging out, and I'll be messaging you guys going into Thursday, as I'm sure these props are going to move like crazy. That's why I wanted to do it today. I feel like a lot of the value is going to be gone if you try to bet these on Wednesday.
Yeah, we'll start getting reports the next 2 days.
Today was the first day I saw a real big line movement, stark line movement you can see hour by hour. Versus the lines have been pretty stagnant for the most part up until kind of this week.
Yeah, and an information-based market here. I think today's the day to get in. So I'm glad we were able to do this today. I appreciate you guys jumping on. Appreciate all the hard work you guys put in during college basketball season. And I know the Run Pure subscribers do as well. If you guys aren't a member of runpuresports.com, head on over there, use that promo code, get bets. And then, of course, next season, you can be taking advantage of these gentlemen's wealth of knowledge when it comes to making lineups and betting on college basketball. So we appreciate you guys for joining us. Tyler and I will probably do a free agent show right around the beginning of July.
Yep.
When everything goes crazy there. So everybody, thanks for hanging out. Sorry I didn't talk to the chat more, Brandon Cola. I'll do that next time for the free agent show. We appreciate you gentlemen for joining us. And of course, the chat for liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Run